Hi, I'm Danielle Dietrich, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 things disadvantaged business enterprise owners should know when taking on investors in their business. So, many business owners recognize growing your business is expensive. It requires capital for equipment, for people, all those things. You need to spend money to make money, as the old adage says. So, if you are a disadvantaged business enterprise, you need to keep in mind the U.S. Department of Transportation regulations about raising funds from investors, including private equity firms. That often comes up as well in questions that I receive. As with anything, money comes with strings, investments come with strings. And so you end up having this tension between the reassurances that an investor wants when investing in a DBE business versus what the regulations will allow for it to remain a DBE. And it's this tension, and sometimes businesses have to make a choice. And we're going to talk about that today a little bit about the different things you need to keep in mind. And the way the regulations kind of go, your traditional silent investors, people just put money to the business may not be interested once they see what the certification requirements are. And so you end up having to decide, do you want to be a DBE or do you want this money so you can grow? So no matter what, the socially and economically disadvantaged owner, the CEDO, must keep at least 51% of the ownership of the company. That is non-negotiable if you want to remain a DBE. No way around it. Can't help it. Can't help you figure out some way around it. I get asked that all the time. Not going to happen. That is one of the basic tenets of this certification. And another one is control. So the investment documents can't alter the CEDO's absolute and complete control in the business. That is a requirement of the regulations because it's supposed to be a woman or minority running the company. And so if you have an investor that does not qualify coming in and wanting control over the business, that's a problem. The agreement that you have with your investors, with very limited exceptions, which we may talk about here in a moment, um, you can't require that the investor have to consent to actions of the corporation, whether that is taking on debt, whether that is doing just getting approval for expenditures. That's a big one. That's one that I see a lot, approval for all expenditures over $10,000, $100,000, whatever it is. Those sorts of clauses are limitations on the control of the CEDO individual, and that's not going to fly for DBE purposes. Because keep in mind, if you're bringing on an investor, they're going to want some sort of ownership in the business. Otherwise, it would just be a loan. And you do have to report any change in ownership to your certifying agencies within 30 days of that happening. So they're going to know that you took on an investor and they're going to ask some questions about that. So you can, within the bylaws or operating agreements, require non-CEDO, so those investors, consent for extraordinary actions. So this is new in the regulations that were released earlier this year, and I'm glad it's there because it does allow for a little bit more leeway for investors. So what are the examples that they give of that? So sale of the company or substantially all of its assets. It's okay to require consent from the non-CEDOs, from everyone for that. Mergers or sudden wholesale change in the type of business. So you are a paving company and you decide that, nope, I'm going to pivot and we are going to sell widgets, whatever, that sort of thing, to totally change the business. It's okay to require consent from other individuals that don't control, that aren't CEDOs. So that is something to keep in mind because almost always every agreement I've seen, I feel like for outside investors coming in and infusing money into the company, they want something, they want some say in it, the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. So here, that makes sense. If I were investing in a company, I'd want some say too. So that does, again, it's another example of that tension that we are creating here between bringing in the outside money and maintaining the DBE certifications. So again, make sure you need to report any changes in ownership or percentage of ownership within 30 days. And if you don't, that could really put your certification in danger. And so one of the other things to keep in mind is that once an investor is on board as an owner, if they contribute additional funds, which, hello, that's why you're bringing them in, the CEDO must also contribute funds commensurate with their ownership interest in order to maintain their investment. That's a tough one because I just feel like that really ties your hands quite a bit. And again, there's no way around that. Also, I will say we have not seen any cases make their way through to the US DOT to see if there are any exceptions or any guidance that they can give. Because these rules just went live in May of 2024, just a few months ago, there has not been the opportunity for different situations to make their way through the appeal process for us to get some guidance from from the government on these things. And I do get FOIA requests out to them every few months to the U.S. Department of Transportation trying to get these decisions. Nothing has made its way through yet. So maybe we will see some guidance or wiggle room on this, but I don't know and I can't say. So one other thing that's new, and I haven't heard a lot about it, but I wanted to put it out there, is that the US DOT has established a new Connections Marketplace CMP platform with a database of DBE, small disadvantaged businesses, and private investors to help connect small businesses with these private investors. I don't know, none of my clients have done this yet. I haven't heard how successful that is being or how helpful, whether those are investors that are aware of the DBE regulations and are thus going to be, more willing to enter in agreements that conform with those regulations. So that is the update. That is some thoughts. Again, there's a lot of things to consider, and it becomes, a business judgment call more so than a legal call as to what the judgment will be there. So thanks so much for listening, and look for future videos.